You really have to hear what this team encountered. If you stay with me, you will understand why I have not slept in a dark room since August of 2018. On August 14, 2018, in Kentucky's Red River Gorge, 4 people from a 5-person field team were lost to one stretch of sandstone and shadow. 3 were gone that same week. The 4th made it out breathing, lived almost 4 more years, and dropped dead in a grocery store parking lot with no clogged arteries, no stroke, no drug trace, and no damage the medical examiner could use to explain why his heart stopped. The official explanation for our case was exposure, falls, panic, and poor judgment in difficult terrain. That explanation was wrong. 1 pair of boots was found standing upright on dry stone where no body had fallen. 1 line of footprints ended in open ground halfway through a step. No animal sign, no drag marks, no blood. What comes next is the account. My name is Evan Mercer. I was 41 years old that summer. I was a wilderness ranger assigned to the Red River Gorge district, and I had worked that section of Daniel Boone National Forest for 17 years. I knew the ridge roads, the creek cuts, the sandstone shelves, the unofficial camps, the shortcut trails people swore did not exist, and the places where the gorge folded sound in strange ways after dark. I learned that country from my father before I ever wore a uniform. He took me there when I was 9, and by the time I was a teenager I could move from Oxier Ridge to Gray's Arch without looking down more than twice. Nothing had ever frightened me. That changed at Red River Gorge. I still keep a lamp on the floor by my bed, aimed at the door. I do not like shadows collecting under furniture. I fold my clothes over a chair instead of leaving them on the floor. I cannot stand seeing boots side by side unless I place them there myself. There were 5 of us on the field team. Dana Whitlock was 52, district law enforcement, 24 years on federal land. She spoke in neat sentences and wrote cleaner reports than anyone I had known. If there was a loose fact, Dana would pin it down. Micah Renshaw was 29, wildlife technician, 6 years in the district. He logged weather, tracks, droppings, camera times, moonrise, battery percentages, and how much coffee each of us drank. He wrote everything down because he believed memory always edited in its own favor. Lila Dean was 33, archaeology liaison, 8 years in field work across Kentucky and West Virginia. She had a low, steady voice that made people slow down when they talked to her. She knew how to look at soil, stain, chipped stone, soot, and broken bone and tell you which marks belonged to people and which belonged to time. Ben Harlan was 24, trail maintainer, 1 full season in the gorge. He was fit, eager, and just uncertain enough to volunteer for things before he had fully thought them through. He laughed too quickly when he was tired. And then there was me. We were sent in because 3 separate complaints over 11 days had come from the same backcountry corridor off Tunnel Ridge Road. Hikers reported hearing a man calling for help below a shelter line where no one was camped. 2 climbers said the woods went silent all at once before dusk, every insect and bird cutting off at the same instant. A couple from Lexington told Dispatch they found a shirt folded on a rock under an overhang, dry though the surrounding ground was wet, with no one nearby to claim it. A week earlier, a solo camper had been reported overdue after parking legally and signing in. He turned up the next morning half a mile from his site with no pack, no boots, and no memory of where he had spent the night. He kept saying something had called him by his dead brother's voice. We treated it as a backcountry disturbance case with a missing person angle. That was the language on paper. In person, it felt smaller than that. Routine. Irritating. The kind of thing you wrap by sundown and file before the weekend. The section we hiked into was rough country even by gorge standards. The Red River Gorge is full of high sandstone cliffs, narrow gullies, hemlock shade, rock shelters, and sloping shelves that can make a person disappear from view after 3 steps. The place we were working sat about 9.4 miles from the nearest point a truck could reach us and 31 miles from the nearest emergency room. The shelters in that corridor faced east and held cold shadow longer than they should have after sunset. Some were shallow. Some ran back into stone so deep the beam from a flashlight looked thin before it touched the rear wall. Sound moved badly in there. You could hear a pebble fall behind you from a direction where there was no path at all. Lila had been added because the complaints clustered around old shelter sites with known evidence of long human use. On the hike in, she told Ben that some rock shelters in the gorge had held signs of occupation going back thousands of years. Ben said that was old enough for a place to start keeping grudges. Dana told him not to fill the woods with his own nonsense. We laughed. Even now I remember that laugh because it was the last clean sound any of us made as a group. We established a base near a narrow saddle above the shelter corridor. We logged times, checked batteries, marked bearings, and moved downslope in pairs. At 5:13 p.m., Micah noted the first oddity. The air temperature dropped 6 degrees in less than 7 minutes under clear conditions. At 5:19, he wrote that there were no insect sounds within hearing range. At 5:21, Ben found the shirt. It was a blue flannel, men's medium, folded once through the middle and laid on a flat piece of sandstone like it had been set out for pickup. No mud, no tears, no sweat smell, no blood. Beneath it the stone was dry. Around it the ground was dark from damp. Dana photographed it. Micah bagged it. Lila stood at the shelter mouth and looked in without speaking. I asked her what she saw. She said, "Smoke on the ceiling. Old use. Older than the camps." Then she pointed to the dirt just inside the drip line. There was a single line of prints in the soft soil. Boot tread. Adult size. They went toward the back wall. 5 clear impressions. Then nothing. No pivot. No kneel. No slide. No return prints. The 6th step should have landed on packed soil. It did not land anywhere. Dana said there had to be rock under the dirt. Lila crouched, brushed the surface with 2 fingers and said, "No. Same depth. Same moisture." Micah took photos. Ben leaned in too far and hit his head on the low stone. He laughed again, but no one joined him. That night we stayed in place because of failing light and the overdue camper report. We ate from our packs. Dana set the watch order. Ben took first watch with Micah. I was checking route notes when the woods cut out. That is the only phrase that fits. They did not grow quiet. They cut out. 1 second there were katydids, tree frogs, water somewhere below us, leaves moving against leaves. The next second there was nothing. Not less sound. No sound. Ben said my name from beyond the lantern glow. I looked up. Ben was on the opposite side of camp. Then we heard it again from downslope. Evan. Same voice. Same pitch. 1 beat wrong. Like something had listened first and then repeated it after deciding it could do it well enough. Dana stood up at once. "Nobody leaves the light," she said. We counted ourselves out loud. 5 voices. 5 lights. Then the voice below us said Ben's name. He answered before any of us could stop him. Just 1 word. "Yeah." Lila turned so fast she nearly hit the lantern. Ben took 3 steps toward the slope. I caught his pack strap and yanked him back. He stared at me like he had woken up mid-sentence. "What did you hear?" I said. He looked ashamed. "I thought somebody fell." No one slept after that. Near midnight we found his flashlight 10 yards below camp. Lying on the leaves turned on, beam aimed uphill. Ben swore he had not set it there. At 2:11 a.m., Micah wrote that the night sounds resumed all at once after 43 minutes of total silence. At first light we searched the shelter line. Dana wanted to pull out and bring in more people. I agreed, but we had to sweep one last drainage first because the missing camper's route likely crossed it. Ben walked with me. He was quiet. Twice he looked over his shoulder at nothing. At 8:42 a.m., we reached a patch of mud beside a seep spring and found his prints. Not old prints. New ones. His exact tread. They crossed the mud at an angle toward a boulder split by a vertical crack. For steps. A 5th impression pressed deep through the heel and ball, the kind of mark you leave while moving your weight forward. Then open mud. No 6th print. No leap mark. No slide. No rock close enough. Nothing overhead except branch and sky. I looked at Ben. He looked at the prints and said very softly, "I didn't go there." An hour later he was gone. We had been moving in a line above the shelters. Dana in front. Me behind her. Lila and Micah 10 yards back. Ben last. I heard one loose stone roll. I turned. He was no longer on the trail. We searched for 5 hours. We called until our throats felt skinned. At 3:17 p.m., Lila found his boots. They were inside a dry shelter, standing side by side at the back wall, toes pointed outward toward us. The laces were tucked in. His socks were rolled into the left boot. Dana said, "Bag them." No one moved. Micah said, "He would not do that." Lila was looking above the boots. There were old soot bands on the stone, thin black skins of smoke laid down over a long time. Someone had once burned fires there for years, maybe centuries. Cut into the wall at shoulder height was a faded mark I had never noticed before. Not a picture. More like 3 parallel strokes crossed by one short line. Lila took a photo, then another with scale. She said, "This shelter was known." That evening we began to pull out, but the gorge did not let us do it cleanly. Bearings drifted. The map did not match the time it took to cover distance we had already measured. The spare GPS kept freezing and restarting. 2 trail markers we had tied ourselves were gone. Not fallen. Gone. At 6:03 p.m., every sound in the woods stopped again. Micah was 20 yards off to the right changing batteries in a camera. We heard Dana from farther downslope, shouting that she had found sign. We all turned toward her voice. Dana was standing beside me. The shout came again, lower now, strained, exactly in Dana's voice. Micah moved first. He was careful by nature, but that sound cut through the training in him. He stepped toward it. Lila yelled for him to stop. He looked back once, irritated, like we were delaying something obvious, and disappeared behind a shoulder of rock. We reached him in less than a minute. He was on his knees in the leaves, still upright, hands hanging open at his sides. There was no wound, no blood, no torn clothing. His skin had gone the color of paper left in rainwater. His pulse was there but thin, too thin. I have checked for pulse on drowned people, climbers after falls, heart attack patients on trailheads. This was different. It felt like a body trying to remember what living was. His eyes found mine. His mouth worked twice before sound came. "It stands in the dark part," he said. Then he collapsed. We got him breathing better. We forced fluids. He would wake for a few seconds and fall away again. By then, full extraction in the dark was worse than holding until dawn, so we made the worst decision of my career and sheltered in place. Lila asked me for the evidence bag with Ben's socks. She held them a moment, then said she had heard something like this once from a Shawnee elder during a site consultation years before. Not as a story told for effect, as a warning given because some places were still used by what had always lived there. She said the old name was spoken quietly and translated for outsiders as the breathtaker in stone shadow. She told me the rule attached to it. Never answer a voice coming from a shelter after the woods go silent. Never cross inward when the shadow line reaches your feet. If it calls you by name, keep your mouth closed. Not whispering, not prayer. Closed. Dana asked why Lila had waited until now. Lila said, "Because I wanted a better answer." That night, the shadow line reached camp before the light was gone from the sky. We counted what we had. 3 working headlamps, 2 lanterns, 1 service pistol on Dana, 11 rounds, 1 flare, 2 radios with weak batteries. Micah breathing shallow in a sleeping bag between us. The silence settled over the gorge so hard my ears rang against it. Something moved at the tree line. I did not see a body first. I saw the dark beneath a ledge rise higher than the ledge should have allowed. Then one long step. Another. It stood over 7 feet. Its stride covered close to 4 feet of ground. I never saw a face. I saw the place where light did not stay long enough to make one. Dana fired once into the dirt in front of it. The sound came back wrong, flattened. The shape did not rush. It circled. Planning. That was the part that broke me more than anything else. It knew where the light ended. It knew where Micah lay. It knew Dana was the one with the gun. From below us, Ben called for help. Not a copy this time. Ben. Tired. Hurt. Human. Lila grabbed my wrist so hard I had bruise marks the next day. "Do not answer," she told me. Dana moved left for a clearer line. The shape shifted right at the same instant, and that was when I understood the voice had not been bait by itself. It had been placement. It wanted Dana to move. She got one more shot off. Then the dark crossed the last strip of stone between us. Dana went down as if something had reached inside her and turned a switch. No cry, no struggle. She folded where she stood. Lila and I dragged Micah uphill. We left the pistol. I still remember leaving it. My hand touched the grip and let go because metal had become useless in my mind. Behind us I heard one more thing fall. I have never turned that sound into a person. I think that is the only reason I can still function in grocery stores and post offices and other bright places. We made it to the highest shelter, the one with the old smoke band and the faded carved mark. Lila shoved a small, wrapped object into my palm. River cane and red thread around a flat piece of stone. She said an elder had given it to her after a survey in eastern Kentucky and told her it belonged at the mouth of a shelter if the old quiet came back. She put it on the ground at the threshold. The shape stopped outside. No sound, no breath, no weight in the dirt I could measure. Only a darkness held together in the outline of a standing thing. Then it said my name. Perfectly. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood. I did not answer. It said my father's voice next. Then my mother. Then Ben again. Lila looked at the floor and said, "Keep your mouth closed." Micah stirred behind us and made a wet little sound in his throat. The shape leaned nearer. The carved mark over the shelter mouth seemed to catch the lantern light. For a moment I thought I saw older scratches around it, many of them, cut by different hands over a long time. That was when Lila made her choice, called my name once more, and she answered. "Here," she said. The shadow withdrew from the shelter mouth in one smooth motion. Lila stood, stepped over the threshold before I could grab her, and went after it into the dark as if she had heard someone she loved on the far side. I got one hand on her sleeve. The cloth came free. That was all. No scream, no footfall, only the silence again. Micah and I were found the next afternoon by the second team Dana had half requested before the radios failed. I was dehydrated, concussed, and holding Lila's torn sleeve so tightly the medic had to pry my fingers open. Micah had a pulse in the 30s and skin temperature low enough that the emergency physician wrote in his note that his level of awareness was inconsistent with his condition. The county medical examiner could not explain Dana's death. No fall injury, no rupture, no stroke, no poison. Her heart had stopped. That was all the certainty available. Ben remained missing. Lila remained missing. The official report called Dana's death a probable cardiac event under extreme stress and listed Ben and Lila as lost in hazardous terrain. Our timeline was trimmed. Micah's statement was reduced to confusion after exposure. The shelter photos disappeared from the final appendix. The line of tracks ending mid-stride was not included at all. That report is demonstrably wrong. Dana was healthier than I was. Ben's boots did not walk themselves into place. Lila did not wander off. And Micah did not nearly die from weather on a warm August night with no sign of injury and no reason for his heart to fail in pieces over the years that followed. Afterward, I went to records. Old Ranger memos. County death notices. Missing person files. Microfilm in Winchester. Notes from the 70s. Clippings from 1989, 1974, 1956. Same corridor. Same late summer timing. Same silence before dusk. Same arranged clothing. Same bodies with no plain cause. One 1974 field note by a forest worker named Garrett Vance said, in pencil, "Track stop as if the man was lifted out of the ground while walking." Another note, undated, read, "Do not answer from under the stone." I took those copies to a Shawnee cultural contact Lila had written down in one of her field notebooks. He did not smile when he read them. He did not look surprised. He told me people before us had known certain shelters were thresholds after heat-heavy days in late August, when the rock held shadow deeper than it should. He told me the old warnings were not stories built for children. They were instructions built for survival. He gave me a folded note in Lila's handwriting, left with him months before our trip in case she ever needed someone else to hear the warning. I still have it. It says only this: if the woods go silent, do not answer. If the shadow reaches your boots, step back. If it calls your name, let it go unanswered. Micah lived until April of 2022. He avoided campsites, mirrors in dark rooms, and phone calls after sunset. He checked his pulse at stoplights. He wrote down every skipped beat. He died beside a shopping cart with a loaf of bread under one arm. The autopsy found no reason strong enough to explain a man of 33 dropping where he stood. Red River Gorge is still open to the public. Families hike there. Climbers laugh in the parking lots. Couples take pictures under arches. Most people who visit have a clean day, a long walk, and a drive home with dust on their shoes. But some nights in late August, after a hot day breaks and the air cools too fast under the sandstone, the shelter mouths keep their shadow longer than the ridges should allow. On those nights, people hear a voice below the trail and think someone needs help. Nobody connects the cases because each one is filed alone, trimmed down, and pushed under a better-sounding word. So if you go, and the woods cut out all at once, and a voice comes to you from the dark part of a shelter using a name that belongs to your life, do not answer it. Not to be polite, not to be brave, not to prove anything to yourself. Keep your mouth closed and back away without turning your back on the stone. I survived because Lila answered when it called my name. That is the part that keeps me awake at night.